Bang, Vivian Prescott kicked open my shed door like she was serving a federal warrant, HOA notice clutched in her talons, yelling about trespassing on community property as if she was calling down the end of days. Even the spiders in the corner flinched. But me, I just kept cool, pointed to the surveyor's map on my workbench. See, the $1 million HOA Marina was actually creeping a good 15 feet onto my land. You want to play legal games? I told her, stepping outside by sundown. I'd trapped all 10 HOA boats behind my locked boundary just like that. And honestly, that was only the opening act. You ever have a day where your whole life does a complete U-turn before you even finish your coffee? That was me, Jonah Clay, 34, software engineer, proud new owner of my late grandfather's lakefront slice of Minnesota. Thought I'd finally get some peace. A busted lawnmower to fix a shed full of old memories, but no peace wasn't in the cards. Not with Vivian and her sister Brittany running the HOA like a sorority with legal muscle. Throw in Richard Dick Cromwell, the county inspector, whose gut showed up before he did, and you get the idea. Vivian was waving some official paper declaring my shed illegal. Funny thing, this was the place Grandpa taught me to fix more than engines, a place for heartbreak repairs and 3 generations worth of stubborn hope. I felt my blood boiling, but I wasn't about to cave. Instead, I booted up my laptop, fired up the mapping app I'd coded, showed everyone, including Dick, that my shed was fully on private property, while their precious Marina dock was squatting on my land. Dick blanched. Vivian screeched. Brittany started recording, and before long, Vivian was dialing what she thought was 911, except she got Papa John's instead. "Don't you people have pizza enforcement officers?" she barked, while the poor pizza guy just tried not to laugh. That scene told me everything I needed to know. This was never about a shed. It was about control, about whether anyone had the backbone to push back against these self-appointed neighborhood tyrants. Grandpa's voice echoed in my head. "Son, sometimes you gotta do what's right, even if it's hard." So I went deeper. I pulled up state law and property rights, explained it calmly, even as Vivian went red and Dick tried to look invisible. They left vowing legal doom, but I'd already found their system's fatal flaw, and I was just getting started. Next morning, I called for a county survey. The news hit hard. It'd take weeks and cost $2, $400. That kind of money doesn't just sit in my back pocket. I almost gave up, almost. But then out of nowhere, Harold Bridges, an old surveyor who'd worked with my grandfather, called and offered to help free of charge. You want to talk about guardian angels? Harold was it. 3 hours later, GPS gear in hand, he confirmed it all, not just the dock, but their golf cart path and boat trailer parking, every bit built on my land. I sat in the shed that night, just tracing my fingers over Grandpa's old workbench, swearing I'd protect this place. Meanwhile, Vivian was playing a different game, pulling strings with her old college buddy, County Commissioner Janet Walsh, who quietly pushed new permit requirements my way. The walls were closing in. So I did what I do best. I coded through the night-launching LakewoodTransparency.com, mapping every violation, every timeline, drone footage, and all. In a day, 200 neighbors were reading the truth for the first time, and suddenly the comment section turned into a support group for every resident Vivian had ever bullied. Then came Dorothy Hang, our elderly neighbor, who'd watched Grandpa garden for decades. She handed me a USB drive labeled "For Jonah if they come." That drive was pure dynamite audio of Vivian plotting to build on my land, email chains, bribery records, and photos. Turns out Grandpa had been preparing for war the whole time, documenting every shady move. The evidence showed Vivian's pattern, targeting elderly owners, faking violations, bullying them out so she could grab up their land cheap. I realized then this wasn't just about me. It was about stopping her for everyone's sake. But when I tried to bring it to the county attorney, the answer was stone-cold conflict of interest. Get your own lawyer. The price tag, $15,000 minimum. I spent that night feeling small, the David in a David versus Goliath story, where Goliath had deep pockets and a law degree. That's when Jacob Montrose, an environmental lawyer, called after seeing my site. He'd faced Vivian in court before, knew exactly what kind of bully she was, and offered to take my case for free if I was willing to see it through. He also told me about her record 73 lawsuits in 8 years, mostly lost all about intimidation. Vivian hit back fast bogus fines phone calls to the mayor and even tried to shut down my site for illegal business operations. But with Jacob digging, we found out Dick the inspector wasn't just sloppy, he was corrupt, a paid player, and a scam that stretched across 3 counties with Vivian at the center. The day of the emergency injunction hearing, Vivian rolled in with a small army, including her husband Thomas, a top property lawyer who'd never lost a local case. He tried to paint me as a cyber criminal doctoring evidence, but Judge Thompson wasn't buying it, especially after cross-checking everything, including original deeds and Harold's GPS data. And when the judge realized Thomas had counseled on permits Dick had approved, he kicked Thomas off the case for conflict of interest. Vivian was left with a public defender who looked about as eager as a cat at bath time. Jacob presented the evidence bribes, fake permits, and Vivian's own recorded confession. Judge Thompson granted a 30-day injunction, opened a criminal investigation, but told me not to block Marina access in the meantime. For a moment, I doubted if all this chaos was worth it, until Dorothy reminded me that Grandpa had waited a lifetime for someone to stand up like this. That night, the biggest twist yet. Brittany showed up, no camera, no smirk, just a sister torn up inside. She gave me an envelope with financial records, proof Vivian had targeted multiple families for years. Suddenly, I was staring at a map of victims, elderly, vulnerable, bullied out by fake violations and legal threats. That was the moment I decided LakewoodTransparency.com wasn't just my defense anymore. It was going to be a spotlight on every rotten trick Vivian ever pulled. The website exploded, 15,000 visitors, news stories, dozens of victims stepping forward. At the next HOA meeting, over 150 people packed the hall. An accountant neighbor exposed nearly $50,000 blown on Vivian's lawsuits, leaving the HOA basically bankrupt. Boat owners, some with yachts worth more than my house, turned on her, demanding their fees back. Even her old supporters walked out. And when Vivian, desperate, tried to weaponize environmental law, it backfired. The lake was artificial, built under a 1954 federal program, and I actually owned a sixth of the water rights. I could have shut down every boat, every dock, ended the HOA's control with a signature. But you know, sometimes doing what's right means not using the nuclear option even when you could. Instead, I proposed a deal: Vivian out, full audit, new bylaws, compensation for the victims, and transparency forever. Vivian lost it, melted down, confessed to trying to gentrify the whole lake for profit, and in the end was tossed out of the HOA with a unanimous vote. Justice came swift. Dick was charged for bribery. Vivian faced fraud and embezzlement charges. Her husband was under review. The shed she tried to erase became the community's tech hub, coding classes for kids' senior workshops, and a memorial garden for Grandpa. Even Brittany found redemption running the HOA finances with full transparency and making a viral TikTok series on resident rights. That website, built in desperation, spread to hundreds of neighborhoods across the country. HOA bullies were losing their grip everywhere, and I got called by the state attorney's office to help consult on property fraud. Turns out sometimes the quietest guy in the room, the one fixing lawnmowers in his granddad's shed, can end up starting a movement. Vivian. She's spending her Saturdays restoring wetlands for community service, and even her new Florida HOA cited her for unauthorized signage. Poetic justice, if you ask me. And as I watched the Marina reopen, my nephew building a birdhouse at my side, Mrs. Henderson called to say she finally got her house back. In the end, it wasn't about lines on a map. It was about proving that one stubborn person standing up could inspire an entire neighborhood to take back their rights. So let me ask you, what would you have done? Was I right to fight, or did I take it too far? Drop your take in the comments. Who's the real villain in a story like this? The HOA, the system, or maybe just our own silence hit? Like, share your story, and remember, sometimes you got to draw a line, not just in the dirt, but in your heart.